my name is Jalen. I'm a current registered nurse in California. My boyfriend's name is Felipe. He is in the Army and he is stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Now, if you watched my last video, how to become an RN, I told everybody what path I took to become a nurse and what path worked for me, and I gave the price breakdown and how long it took. I also gave a lot of information out that will help anyone looking to go to nursing school or who is also currently in nursing school and new grads. So if you want all that information, make sure to check that video out. But in that video, towards the end, I actually told you guys that I was taking a COVID crisis assignment. I told you guys how much I was getting paid, but I did not tell you where I was working. Finally, in this video, I can let you know where I took my assignment. It was very crazy, it was very unexpected, but it was a really good experience. Your girl was at the Men and Women's State Prison in Chino Hills, California. Yes, your girl was giving care behind bars. Now, I paroled. I was only there for 8 months, but if you wanna know what, when, how, and why I took this assignment, let's get into it. So you guys are gonna be like, how did you get this job? I was on Indeed one night and I was applying to hospitals, and as I was applying, a job posting popped up. It says correctional nurses wanted ASAP, and it gave me the price, $80 an hour. And I was like, whoa, that is really good. I applied for this job thinking I probably wasn't going to get it. So after I applied, I kept on applying to hospitals. Later that night, I got a call from a recruiter asking me a bunch of questions and kind of giving me a very brief description of the assignment. They asked me to send in all my paperwork, which was like your nursing license, your BLS, your nursing insurance, all that stuff, and they also asked if they could run a background check. All that got done in one night. The next afternoon, they said that my background check was cleared and that they would like to do an over-the-phone interview. After we did the over-the-phone interview, the next day, later that evening, they said that I got the job. Now, they were hiring for the 4 prisons in California. They were hiring for Chino Hills, they were hiring for Norco, they were hiring for Lancaster, and they were hiring for San Quentin. They allowed you to pick where you wanted to go. I obviously picked Chino Hills because it was the closest prison to me, and you also got to pick what shift you wanted. At the prison, there is first watch, second watch, and third watch. And for the nurses, we had to pick between second watch and third watch. Second watch, the nurses worked from 7 to 3, and third watch, the nurses worked from 3 to 11. You also got to pick what prison you wanted to go to. As a female, of course, I'm gonna pick the female prison. So I picked the female, the Women's State Prison in Chino Hills, California, and I picked first watch, which means I was working from 7 to 3. I would work an 8-hour shift 5 times a week. The orientation was that Friday. It was all the way out in Ontario, California, and when I got there, I was in a room with about 30 people. It all consisted of RNs, LVNs, and CNAs. What this orientation consisted of was a lot of safety and a lot of clinical care. And what shocked me the most, which I did not know, in the prisons in the US, most of them have their own healthcare system in place, meaning they have either like a mini hospital in the prison, which consists of like a triage unit. They have their own clinics. They even have their own dental clinics and their own fire department inside the prison. So they were orientating us pretty much to what clinical care we would be doing in relation to the clinics and in relation to COVID-19. I would say the majority of the meeting was on safety and what rules and regulations we had to follow. I think the biggest thing they were kind of strict on is what we could wear. The nurses were very limited. I think we could only wear 3 colors because they did not want us matching the inmates, and they did not want us matching the custody, and they didn't want us wearing certain colors that would make us look affiliated with anybody. So they gave us a lot of rules and regulations to follow. And an example that in our lunch pails, everything had to be plastic, no glass, no metal. Even our stethoscopes had to be approved by the warden to bring them in. It was very crazy and very intense. And they also gave us certain protocols of how to get in and out of the prison each day that we worked. So that was what the orientation was about. Now, we started work that Monday, and when I tell you I was stressed, I was stressed. I started at the women's prison. It was CIW, and I was there for 3 months. A majority of the time, it was split in half. We were half of the days at the clinic helping the state clinic nurses, and the other half of the days, we were doing COVID-19 care. So when we were in the clinic, it consisted us of doing wound care, treating infections, doing x-rays, giving immunizations, and also we would help out in the triage unit. So if there was a fight on the yard, or if somebody fell off their bunk, or if anyone was having a heat stroke, we would give care to those people. The other part of the week, we would be doing COVID-19 care, which means we were screening all the housing units and all the inmates for COVID, asking them questions, doing temperature checks. Also, we were doing swabbing. I would say we were doing swabbing every other day at the prison because there was so many inmates. We would have to hit every housing unit, and we were divided into teams. At the women's prison, those who were COVID positive were in an isolation unit, and there was a specific team. They would rotate nurses who would go into the isolation unit. We would be in full PPE, and it was so hot. Mind you, prisons do not have air conditioning, and we were all the way out in Chino in the summer, and it was getting up to 90 to 95 degrees in the housing units. And we had to walk through all the housing units in the isolation unit and screen them and make sure that their O2 level was okay, that their blood pressure was okay, that their symptoms weren't worsening, and we also had to monitor for a heat stroke. So a lot of our time when the numbers were really bad, we were in the isolation units making sure the inmates were okay. It was a really rough period, but slowly the COVID numbers started to trickle down and we got things under control. And as the numbers started to come down, the state would assess, and they said, pretty much said, hey, the state nurses can handle this now, we don't need you. And how I found out, pretty much I got a text when I got off work from my recruiter saying that, hey, the numbers at the women's prison are pretty much low, that they don't need the crisis workers anymore. But they said that the men's prison needed nurses. The men's prison is 10 times bigger than the women's. The men's prison was CIM in Chino, and it has 4 yards, so it's huge. So my recruiter was pretty much like, hey, your assignment is over here, but if you want to continue working, this is the only other option we had for you. You know what? We're gonna go for it. We're heading over to CIM. My assignment, I believe, ended on a Thursday at the women's prison, and that Monday I was starting at the men's prison. And I'm not gonna lie, I was way more anxious than I was when I started at the women's for the first time. I was at the men's prison, CIM, for 6 months, which was double the time of the women's prison. The men's prison has 4 yards. It has your Alpha, your Bravo, your Charlie, and your Delta yard. And each yard holds almost 1,000 inmates. So at this prison, which was so different compared to the women's, is that each morning as I was driving into work, I had to call the command center at the prison. They had a COVID crisis command center set up in one of the yards, and they would track the numbers and where COVID was spreading the fastest in what yard, and they would move the nurses around. So I would call every morning and they would say, Nurse Trailer, you need to report to Delta Yard. Nurse Trailer, you need to report to Bravo Yard. And it's funny because I also learned that in the prison system, whether you're custody or you're nurse, medical staff, you go by your last name, just like the Army. And another fun fact, that inmates were never supposed to know your first name. They referred to you by your last name, and they would refer to you by Nurse Trailer, or they would say yes ma'am, or no ma'am, or yes nurse. On whatever yard I went to, no matter what, we were primarily doing COVID crisis care. We were screening, just like the women's prison. We were doing temperature checks, and we were doing a lot of swabbing. I wanna say we were swabbing almost every day because we were going to all the different yards. And if anything emergent were to happen, we send all the inmates to A yard, because on A yard at the men's prison, that's where they had their major mini hospital, where if anyone needed IV care, antibiotics, or anything kind of emergent, that's where they would go if they were not sent out to the local hospital. The men's prison was a lot of work. We spent a lot of time there. But slowly but surely we brought the numbers down. COVID-19 was not spreading rapidly, and everything was finally getting under control. Before my assignment was done, they asked me if I would like to go to the Lancaster prison. I mapped it and it was 71 miles away from me, and I said, you know what, I've been doing this for 8 months. I've gotten my money's worth. But I said I refused the assignment, so my assignment was done. I know you guys have a lot of questions, and I want you to ask me any questions that you have down below, or you can DM me on Instagram. But I'm actually going to try to answer questions that I think you would ask me before you even ask me, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to answer some questions that I think you guys would be interested in. What was the pay from my agency? I was getting paid $80 an hour as an RN, and I was getting paid that much because, one, it was a COVID crisis assignment, they pay you more, and two, it was also a travel contract because the prison was somewhat far away from me. RNs were getting $80 an hour. LVNs were getting between $55 and $65 an hour, and the CNAs were getting between $30 and $35 an hour. Are we allowed to have our cell phones in prison? Absolutely not. Before we went into our shift, we would have to leave our cell phones in the trunk of our car, because as we walked to each yard, this was for the men's and the women's, we would have to go through a security gate and a security process. We would go through a metal detector, and also they would check our bags and our belongings to make sure we didn't have anything we weren't supposed to have. And that included our cell phones. So yes, we were without our cell phones for 8 hours out of the day, which was crazy if you're used to having your cell phone on you all the time. Was it hard working in the prison, and how did you get into the prison? Do they just let any nurse roll up? No, we had state issued IDs, and we would be rolling through the gates every morning, and we would be showing our ID to the officer, and he would be checking our cars, and we would also be getting COVID screened ourselves. So that is how we got into the prison every morning. And I also tried to record a little clip of me driving into the prison. It kind of looks like getting in to the border. Is the prison still hiring? Yes and no. No, the COVID crisis assignments are over at the state prisons. right now. Who knows, they might pop back up in the future with this new Delta variant. But right now there are no COVID crisis assignments. The state workers are actually handling anything related to COVID. But the state is hiring for regular state correctional nurses. How do you become a correctional nurse for the state? On Indeed, there are job postings up that say correctional nurses and for different prisons depending on where you live. And you apply through Indeed or you apply through the prison. They have their own application process through their own website, and I will link the website down below. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, it is lengthy to get a state job. You have to go through multiple interviews and multiple background checks. But the number one reason why a lot of people wanna work for state is because the benefits are very good. All right, next question that I might get. Did anything crazy happen while you were working your assignment? No, nothing crazy happened at all to any of the nurses or any of the inmates. Everything went very smoothly. Probably the next question I might get is, which one did you like more? Did you like the women's prison or did you like the men's prison? I personally liked the men's prison way more. I know this might be shocking. How do I say this in the nicest way? The women were very aggressive. The yard was always down. There was always a fight. There was always something going on at the women's prison. And at the men's, all the inmates were very respectful. It was no ma'am, yes ma'am. They were very appreciative of the care that we were providing them, and we were trying to help them. But yeah, the women, it was a whole different ball game over there. And actually being a female nurse, they were not the nicest to the female nurses for multiple reasons. If I had to do it again, I would actually just take my assignment at the men's prison. All right, another question that I might get. What did the prison look like? Did it look like the movies? Yes. If you need to literally imagine what a prison looks like, it's exactly what it looks like in the movies. Everything is metal, a metal toilet, metal desks, metal bunk beds, paint peeling off the walls. Inmates had, from years, drawings all over the walls, the rows of columns going up and down, everything metal. If you wanna know what an actual prison looks like, go check out a movie with a prison in it, because I'm 100% sure that is what they look like. It is confirmed. What type of nurses can work at the prison? And what's a great thing is that all nurses, nursing aides, MAs, everybody can work at a prison. They hire RNs, LVNs, CNAs, MAs, NPs, and medical doctors. Because like I said, the prison has their own healthcare system and they need all types of people in the healthcare field. So that provides a lot of job opportunities for you guys. Why are you not a state nurse currently? Did you want to be a state nurse? No, I did not. After being there for 9 months and seeing everything, and I decided that it wasn't for me. One, the drive was really long and I did not like working 5 8-hour shifts. I like my 3 to 11s or my 4 10s. So it was just a lot. The drive and the hours were a lot. It was a really good experience. It's just that I did not like the way the healthcare system works at the prison and how they operated things. I believe that it is not fair. And also the state nurses were not nice at all. They were actually, there was a few nice ones, but the state nurses were meaner than the actual inmates. Like, you would never think that. So it just wasn't for me. I didn't like how things were operated and how the healthcare system works. So I did my time. I'm glad I actually took this assignment. It was a great experience and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. But to be a state nurse, that is not for me. How much does a state correctional nurse get paid without the COVID crisis assignment? I asked around, and you will start off between $40 to $45 an hour as a regular state nurse. and they bump up your pay each year, and that where they make the most amount of money is doing overtime. And I think you will max out around $50 an hour as a state nurse when you work your way up. Working in a prison system is safer than it sounds and safer than it looks. You always have a guard with you at all times. If me and another nurse, you always do the buddy system, we're going out to the yard or to any housing unit, there will always be a guard with you. Fun fact, we also had our little prison whistles, because if you blow that whistle, if anything is going down, within 30 seconds, you have a team of guards around you, and thankfully, I've never had to blow my prison whistle. The one thing that I noticed that's different than working outside of a prison is that there is a lot more advocating for your patient than usual. In order for inmates to be seen, unless it's an emergent situation, they have to turn in a pink slip to their clinic. The clinic reviews each pink slip and lets them know they mark it emergent or not emergent. And based on that, the inmate will get seen in maybe 1 to 3 business days. And if you think an infection is getting worse, or their O2 sat is low, or they have pneumonia, or anything especially wrong with COVID, you really have to advocate for that patient to get them seen right away before it becomes an emergency. That was my experience at the prisons in Chino Hills, California. Now, obviously, since then, I have gotten a new job. I left the prison and now I am working in Beverly Hills, California. Two complete opposites, I know. So I've been working my new job a couple months now. So the next video coming out, I'm actually gonna do 2. They're gonna be life updates. One is gonna be talking about my bachelor's program because I'm just about done. And then the other one will be talking about my new job and my new specialty that I have chosen as a nurse. So way more nursing videos coming out for you guys. I'm so excited to share everything with you. I'm glad I really got to share this experience with you guys and give you guys information on the prison system. So maybe one of you guys would like to be a correctional nurse. If you have any questions, please ask them down below. I respond to everybody. Also, I have my Instagram link down below. If you want to message me on Instagram, I reply to anything nursing related. So thank you guys so much. If you like this video, like and make sure you guys subscribe, and more content will be out soon. Bye.